It is a remarkable time for China's diplomacy, exemplified by an unprecedented schedule for China's president, Xi Jinping. In the past year alone, President Xi visited 10 countries on 4 continents, making 8 state visits, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Pakistan. He attended 9 international conferences, including on climate change in Paris, and he gave 44 speeches. Stressing trade and economic cooperation, President Xi signed deals worth more than $100 billion, seeking to show how China's rise benefits the world.
Over 42 hectic days in 2015, President Xi Jinping visited countries in Asia, Europe, North America, and Africa, making headlines everywhere. While economics and trade were the main themes, focusing on energy, transportation, infrastructure, aviation, technology, and tourism, China also signed agreements on projects and programs that benefit people's daily lives, including more convenient visa policies, cheaper imported goods, and cooperation on education and climate change. Commentators worldwide noted an ever-increasing recognition of China's enhanced global role and a boost in diplomatic ties with major world powers, including the US and the UK, and neighboring countries such as Pakistan and Indonesia. One of President Xi's key diplomatic tasks in 2015 was to promote the Belt and Road Initiative, inviting countries and regions along the route to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative and signing agreements for major projects. China states that its diplomacy serves the nation's peaceful development, promoting world peace through economic development. This type of international relations, President Xi Jinping said, features win-win cooperation and creates a community of common destiny for mankind.
But President Xi's diplomacy goes beyond economics, using people-to-people exchanges as a form of public diplomacy. No other national leader, to my knowledge, makes communications between people such a core component of a major country's international strategy. What is it about China that elevates contacts among common people to strategic importance? Part of the answer, I'll tell you in advance, is President Xi's personal experiences. In 1985, as a young county official, he was part of a delegation that visited Iowa in the American Midwest to study agriculture technology. For 2 days, he stayed in the home of an ordinary American family in a small town called Muscatine. He never forgot it. So to understand China's people-to-people strategy, we go to Muscatine, Iowa, to get closer to China.
Yay!
Muscatine, Iowa, the United States. A house marks the friendship between China and the U.S. Proclaimed the Sino-U.S. Friendship House, it was where in 1985, Xi Jinping, then 32 years old, stayed while leading an agricultural delegation to the U.S. Here in Muscatine, this typical American small town, China's future president stayed with a local family in this unassuming house at 2911 Bonnie Drive.
We moved here in 1972. I grew up in this room. My brother and I shared it until middle school. Then he moved downstairs, and then it was my room. And then
so how many years did you live in this room, literally?
Yeah, until actually even through college. And then when he stayed here, so when my brother moved out, we just had one bed. So there was a single bed in the middle, and it had this neon red bedspread, and it had the fiber kind of had like these, it was like kind of almost like hairy. And so then, you know, there was a desk, and then there was a pull-out bed, because 2 of them stayed here. He stayed here, and then his translator.
So I think I'll start with the fun stuff first. One of the things that Xi Jinping made clear to us at that time, remembering he was younger than we actually, was that he had a passion about the Mississippi River. Oh. He had apparently as a youngster read Mark Twain's works and had visions of what that would be like in the Mississippi River. So we did go out on a very large paddle boat, and it was sponsored, and we had a nice ride. We have locks and dams, so we could only go so far, but we had a very nice ride. He was tickled pink, as were his other colleagues.
Our relationship began with a people-to-people structure. my conversation with your conversation, and our conversation evolved into student exchange and cultural items and things like that. So as far as our relationship with China and our relationship with President Xi Jinping, we wish him the best. We think he's a great leader for your country. We'd like to see him come back to Muscatine again sometime soon, if not, well, whenever. But we think it's a great partnership, and we're moving forward with it.
Consul General Zhao, in your work in Chicago and the Midwest representing China, China's foreign ministry, you deal with people-to-people diplomacy all the time. And yet here you and I are in Muscatine, Iowa, a town that many Americans have never heard of, symbolizing people-to-people diplomacy. Why are we here, and how is this symbolism so important?
I think many people are already very familiar with the story of President Xi's engagement with the local people here back in 1985. And I think these are really touching stories. You know, that was the first time for President Xi to visit America. And actually, the people here in Muscatine were the very first group of Americans President Xi, met with. And he was so deeply impressed with the, sincerity and friendliness of the people here. And that's why he kept Muscatine and kept the people here in his heart for almost 30 years. And that's why he returned to Muscatine in 2012, when he paid his first visit to America in his capacity as China's vice president. And the reunion was also very moving, yeah.
Let's go back and understand the history. 1985, when President Xi came literally to this house for the first time in America, what was the motivation at that time? And does that also reflect a time when America could help China emerge through its initial reforms?
1980s, that's a very special time in China's history, and very important for the process. That's the early stage of the opening up and reform policy. Yeah. So, China was so enthusiastic to learn from the outside world, for everything. Yeah. And of course, agriculture, that's so important to China. So at that time, I think many agriculture delegations, they went to visit other countries, including the United States of America. And I think President Xi has made a very good choice coming to Iowa. That's the one of the most important agricultural states in America. Yeah, so I think the purpose is just to learn from the advanced experiences of other countries, I think. And I do believe that President Xi and his delegation, they have learned a lot from what I read and heard from some of his delegation members. That trip turned out to be very fruitful, yeah.
I still remember a lot of good things about his stay here. And the hostess said, the President Xi said, may I have chopsticks here? And the hostess said, unfortunately, I would love to, but unfortunately we don't have. And I'm sure you can find chopsticks here in the whole town. It's a lot of fun, a lot of interesting things.
We look at President Xi's policy, whether it is U.S.-China relations or whether it is the Silk Road Economic Belt, the Maritime Silk Road, which involves some 60 countries in economic development. In all of the plans you see, and President Xi puts forth his policies, you always see terms like win-win cooperation, people-to-people contact, people-to-people cultural exchanges. In all the policies that are economically driven, that are big policies, you always see something about people-to-people. And how does Muscatine reflect President Xi's policy that we see, now reflected in all of China's foreign policy?
People are always the most important, in country-to-country relationship. And so Yeah, you are very right. I think President Xi really has people in his mind and heart. Regarding China's foreign policy or China's international strategy. Mm-hmm. That's really very, very important. And from President Xi's connection with Muscatine, I think people can see clearly that Chinese people cherish friendship with people of other countries. In our tradition, the favor of a drop of water should be returned with the gratitude of a fountain. Yeah. So Chinese people are always grateful to all our foreign friends or people in other countries who have ever supported or who have ever been very kind to China. We always remember that. We will never forget that. Mm. Yeah. So that's really very important. And and also, I think in China, the Chinese leadership, they really have idea of promoting a harmonious and peaceful world, and because that's the common aspiration of all the peoples in the world. Yeah. So whenever we are planning, our diplomatic policy or whatever maneuver we are going to take, we will always, keep people in our mind. And so you mentioned the Maritime Silk Road and the One Belt, One Road initiatives. Of course, those initiatives are seemingly like commercial, economic proposal. Yeah. But also, I think, what's behind those proposals are also, the idea of, seeking common development, with other countries, so as to benefit all the people in all those countries.
For China, people-to-people diplomacy has played a pioneering and facilitating role when diplomatic relations are absent or have run into trouble. In 1971, Chairman Mao Zedong famously invited a U.S. table tennis delegation to China, which caught the attention of the world and played a catalyzing role in opening the door of China-U.S. relations. It was branded by worldwide media as ping-pong diplomacy, in which a small ping-pong ball affected the whole globe. In 1973, with the personal attention of Premier Zhou Enlai, Tianjin of China and Kobe of Japan formed China's first international city-sister relationship, extending people-to-people diplomacy to the sub-national levels. Nowadays, in the vision of Xi Jinping's grand diplomacy, people-to-people diplomacy plays a crucial part. How would you define simply people-to-people communications?
When we say people-to-people, here means people of one country to the people of another country. It can also be public-to-public. It can also be named as public-to-public communication. People of one country can be the actor to be more intentively to communicate to the people of another country. By the simple definition for the public diplomacy is that to inform, engage, and influence the foreign public. It can be the natural people-to-people communication without the advocacy of the government. Okay. But it can be a result of the advocacy of the government. So the government is trying to promote the people-to-people communication. When we say the public diplomacy, back in maybe 50 years ago, the public diplomacy means that the government of one country is trying to communicate with the public of a foreign country. Mm-hmm. That means government to public, government to foreign public. Now you say gradually that there are also some definition to say that it's not only public to the foreign government to the foreign public, but the international actors to foreign public. Okay. This is how I understand now. Government is not the only actor, international actor. Government can be one of the international actors. So it can be many international actors is trying to communicate to the international publics.
Right. So
That
into
is
that-
public diplomacy.
How do you trace the emergence of people-to-people diplomacy as something that's really important in today's world, especially between the U.S. and China?
It's a cornerstone of these foreign policy platforms or philosophies. I think that's very important because, you know, traditionally, foreign relations are conducted only by diplomats, by statesmen, right? And the general public is not involved in this whole process. And there are a lot of disadvantages to that because a policy, no matter how good it is on paper, without popular support, it won't succeed, right? So if you want to get popular support, the policy will succeed. So I think public diplomacy or people-to-people diplomacy or exchanges can be a very important means to advance our policy.
Why does China now using people-to-people communications and public diplomacy as part of its core message as opposed to something peripheral?
Actually, I did some research about President Xi Jinping's speeches at in different parts of the world. He's trying to say that he said again and again that we do encourage the people-to-people communication, and we want to have this number of people to go to different countries, and we welcome people from other countries to come in. As a researcher, I just think that's because Chinese government really understand the importance of the importance of mutual understanding, I think. Relation building, the positive, good relation building with the other part of the world. And also, you just asked why is asked about the significance of the people-to-people communication. I can give you the simple answer and communicated answer. The simple answer is public opinion matters.
It's true.
The word public opinion matters. The communicated answer can be the word public opinion really can be matter in the way that it can decide whether they like your products or not, whether they want to come to travel in your country, whether they want to support your policies, whether they want to accept your visitors, whether they want to welcome your people to come to have business in my country. So it really matters.
So what you're saying is...
And one more, and you know, without such understanding, there might be more conflicts and more war. So the final significance would be world peace.
In its modern history, China suffered greatly from foreign aggression, war, and turmoil. But now that China has achieved such developmental success, people-to-people diplomacy can facilitate international exchanges and cooperation. It involves multiple areas. The people-to-people exchanges, the diplomacy, the communication, it's not one big idea, but it's hundreds, if not thousands, of different relationships between cultural organizations, science, business, communities, geographies, all different areas, and it's a very almost a market-driven activity. It's not a command function that you can command, but you can facilitate it across a broad background in all the different areas.
It's related to almost every areas, yeah. So I think from our perspective, you know, we will continue to do our best, you know, to facilitate all the contacts in all the areas, yeah. And I also, as I said, I'm really delighted to see many, you know, American local organizations, as I mentioned, the Edgar Snow or Woodcock, or you know, so they are all very enthusiastic. And not only those organizations I mentioned, but also many cities or states here, you know, they are very keen in promoting their, you know, friendly exchanges with China. Yeah, we have so many, you know, sister state province relationships, and also so many sister city relations. For example, Chicago, they have two sister cities in China, Shanghai and Shenyang. And they have been in close contact with each other, and they organize many, programs of exchanges. I do believe, the people-to-people relationship is becoming closer and closer. Just give you an example. There are 300,000 Chinese students there. They are now studying at American universities, and about 60,000 in our consular area. Yeah, and in Iowa, the Iowa State alone, there are 5,000, and it's growing every year. And every year there are more than 4 million trips across our two countries. Yeah, so you can see, the contacts are very frequent, and there are now so many direct flights from between our two countries. So all those, and so many people here, they're studying Chinese language, and of course there are many Chinese people, they're studying English. Yeah. So all these are very encouraging facts.
I'm a scholar. I would like to attend the international conferences, so I meet people and share their papers and know what they are doing there. I'll give you an example. Just yesterday here in this building, People's University Women Journalism School, I hosted a dialogue between my students and the professors and deans and professors from Turkey, the Anadolu University, Media School of Anadolu University in Turkey. It was my first time to meet the international colleagues from Turkey. After 1 hour of talk, I realized that we need to learn a lot from them in some ways.
What we want to achieve is actually get some more flavor and blend of Chinese culture, actually acquiring some Chinese students along with the Chinese staff members back into our university, if we can just make it to same in China as well.
I think the most important is these activities broadens my horizon and let me get close touch with the foreign friends, especially my foreign colleagues, the scholars, the teachers.
Another exemplification of people-to-people communication, exchanges, diplomacy. It's another point of light, as we sometimes say, and that's the benefit of people-to-people diplomacy, that each area is a new area to explore ways of communicating and mutual understanding. Mm-hmm. So in journalism, how do you deal with journalism? Do they ask you about journalism in China?
Of course.
And do they say...
I teach a course which is named International Communication and Foreign Press.
Okay.
So we will focus on how foreign media systems operate.
And you can talk as an expert because for a long time you were a correspondent for People's Daily.
Sure. They know so little about the Chinese mass media system. Right. And all they know is negative, to be honest.
Right.
But actually we have something good to offer, I think.
And so how do those exchanges work when you're dealing with people-to-people exchanges at the level of a particular topic, like journalism?
But at the beginning it's hard, but it takes time. Mm-hmm. I think gradually kids here in this country will understand more and appreciate more about how foreign countries live and think. I think that's very good.
In your work in Chicago representing China to 9 or so Midwestern states, how does people-to-people diplomacy affect the kinds of things that you do, and what are some examples?
It's one of our top priority of the consulate, to promote mutual understanding and friendship between the Chinese people and the people in our consular area. That's very important. Yeah. Why that's important? Every country's foreign policy. I think finally it will be decided by the people. It will be decided by the people. Yeah. And unfortunately, here in America, just like in every other country, many people they rely media, domestic media, local media as a main source of information. For them to know about other country. Yeah. So So many people, but unfortunately, many media coverage here in America are very negative, on China-U.S. relations. But there's really, there are really many positive things going on in our bilateral relations. Although we have differences on certain issues, but we have, far more important common interests.
So as time goes on, we obviously see day to day the media, some big problems between U.S. and China. But, frankly, every year there's maybe a different set of problems. But what remains constant are these people-to-people communications. That's why I always appreciate in President Xi's foreign policy, you always see that mentioned. And maybe China is a little unique in that regard in talking about the importance of people-to-people diplomacy, public diplomacy, international efforts through diverse groups of people working together.
Yeah. One point I want to add is that, although Chinese and American peoples, we of course are different in many aspects because of our culture, tradition, history, etc. But we share many similarities, as people. Yeah, and I think it's also the same, for Chinese people and people in other countries. Sure. Yeah. So actually, people in every country, I think we share many similarities. Yeah.
China believes that because the world does not understand the real China, one way to counterbalance Western media is by people-to-people communications. The more foreign people come to know Chinese people in all walks of society and life, the more they will appreciate the real China. As China engages the world as never before, it is the kind of public diplomacy that now plays a central role in President Xi Jinping's foreign policy. In Xi's intense international travels, the three pillars of his vision are: 1, mutual economic development; 2, win-win cooperation; and 3, people-to-people exchanges. Take Xi's recent state visits to Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Iran, a roiled region at a sensitive time where China's enhanced engagement is as bold as it is historic, and where people-to-people exchanges is a centerpiece. That's also why President Xi's simple visit to a small American town carried such significance. There is something simple, pure, and honest about people-to-people communications, which takes us closer to China.